Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. Welcome to Shaq's house.
What's up, Shaq Housers? How you doing? It's your boy Shaq House here. Happy Monday. Let me just apologize to you folks. I am sorry for taking so long away. It's been 3 weeks since my last video, but work shit and personal shit, it intruded, so sorry about that. But I'm back now. And for all you viewers out there, thank you. Thank you for getting me over 1,000 subscribers for my last video for Willie Evans. Thank you for that. I'm grateful for every subscriber I get. Thank you. And thankful for every viewer I get. I hope you like my material, by the way, too. And even if you think it sucks, you can comment below as well, too. I'll take all criticisms. But anyway, what have I got for you Shaq Housers this week, folks? What have I got for you this week, Shaq Housers? Mutant Pyrokinetics. That's right. Mutants on fire. Yeah, Pyro, the burner, Flambé. What's it called? What's that motherfucker's name? Shoot, I'm forgetting names already. But anyway, I got 5 mutants whose powers involve pyrokinesis. We're going to talk about all 5 of them, compare and contrast. Even one particular deep cut in there that I'm sure that only a few of you have ever heard of if you're a Defenders fan. But who am I talking about? Check it out. The Burner. The Burner was born with a mutant power to psionically manipulate combustion. He can increase the temperature of objects in his vicinity, igniting fires with the power of his mind. He can produce streams of flames as blasts from his hands, and he can psionically retard combustion, decreasing the size and temperature of fire in his vicinity. His ability to induce and retard combustion was effective on matter within his line of sight at a distance of approximately 200 feet. His power also automatically douses any flame that comes within 1 foot of him, making him immune to the effects of heat and burning, from both his own power and otherwise. Some fun facts. Byron Calley, originally from New Orleans, he was a master chess player with only 1 year of college education. He was a member of the Mutant Force, who were originally gathered by Magneto as the second incarnation of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and they were 5 mutants in that group, and they were abandoned by Magneto early on, but eventually fell in with a mutant criminal known as Mandrill, who rebranded them as Mutant Force. They served as mercenaries under several organizations, including Mandrill's Femforce and the Professor Power's Secret Empire. The group later became known as the Resistance during the 1980s to oppose the Mutant Registration Act, but eventually returned to operating as Mutant Force before M-Day stripped some of them of their powers. But the Burner himself, he later joined Krakoa and was seen in the Sword title, the Sword Book. He was shown in the X-Men cartoon as a member of the Acolytes, and as an old friend of Gambit, seeing as how they're both from New Orleans, but that never materialized in the book. Next, Pyro. Pyro possesses the mutant power to assume psionic control over fire. He can manipulate the size, shape, and intensity of any fire around him. He can extinguish existing flames or feed the fire to make even the smallest spark grow to enormous size. Pyro can mentally regulate the flame's temperature and shape it in any number of ways. He can cause columns or walls of flame to shoot up, form giant grasping hands out of flame, or project flame jets that tracked a target moving wherever it went. Pyro can create animated figures out of fire, forming fire people, birds, or dragons that move and act under his mental commands. He can somehow forge flames that were solid enough to interact with physical objects, like flaming creatures which could lift people up in their hands. He can make his fire have sufficient solidity to achieve extra force, and make his fire so intense that bullets melt before they can even hit him. In order to control fire, it has to be within a 100-yard radius of Pyro and within his line of sight. He cannot manipulate a fire that he's viewing on live television, however. He's invulnerable to fire under his mental control, but if he was to take his attention away from it, he could be burned very badly. On 2 occasions has Pyro been known to use his power to fly or hover by propelling himself with fire. It's also worth noting that because Pyro cannot generate flames on his own, he always has a fuel pack and flamethrowers attached to his wrists and as part of his fireproof costume. His flamethrowers provide him with a constant source of fire to manipulate and shoot on mental command, traveling a distance of 25 feet without Pyro's aid. Some fun facts. St. John Allerdyce holds a college degree and was an accomplished journalist for an Australian wire service before turning to crime. He was also a successful writer of gothic romance novels beforehand as well. He first appeared as part of Mystique's incarnation of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the ones that appeared during the Days of Future Past storyline. Later, he became empowered as a federal marshal as part of the pre-Thunderbolts team known as the Freedom Force, and then back to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants under the leadership of the Toad. He was one of the earliest mutants to contract the legacy virus and actually died from it. But he was later resurrected on Krakoa and joined Shadowcat's Marauders team, where he got a skull tattoo on his whole face, yes. Also, in his first appearance, he was portrayed as an Englishman and later an Australian, and the Australian part that has stuck ever since. Next, Blowtorch Brand. Blowtorch Brand was a mutant with the power of immunity to the effects and side effects of open flame. His power produced a thermal repulsion field that extended a few millimeters away from his flesh, preventing it from suffering burns. This effect worked on both his internal and external anatomy, allowing him to swallow flames and belch them back out similar to a fire eater. He was also immune to smoke inhalation and the increased ambient temperature produced by burning buildings. He also carried a blowtorch and a pistol. Some fun facts. He was born and raised in a trailer park and became an arsonist for hire after showing off his mutant powers at a bar, which got him free drinks. But he's best known for being the final victim of the vigilante known as the Scourge of the Underworld, who killed him while he was attending an adult movie theater. Fire Fist. Russell Rusty Collins is a mutant pyrokinetic, able to mentally create and manipulate both heat and fire. Initially, Rusty's power would ignite flames over the surface of his body, and then spurts or tongues of fire would fly from off of him. But after some practice, Rusty learned how to start fires anywhere within his line of sight. He can control the size, shape, and intensity of his fires with great precision and manipulate their movements. Not only could he cause specific objects to catch fire from a distance, but he could even create a bridge of flame through open air, connecting two different objects by fire. He was also able to manipulate flame created from other sources and could magnify their intensity or diminish them. With concentration, he could generate heat fields without open flames, such as a wall of sufficient heat around himself to melt oncoming projectiles, or focus enough heat through his hands to cook food, often making popcorn this way. He could heat most metals enough to reshape them by hand also. Later on, he also learned to use his power like an energy blast, projecting a concentrated stream of flame that rushed from his hands. While using his powers, he instinctively generated a super thin, invisible psionic energy field around him that protected him from heat and flame, both his own and external sources. Some fun facts. He was a sailor with the United States Navy when his powers manifested. While in San Diego, he got with a hooker, albeit reluctantly. It was his first time with a woman, and instead of the hooker burning him, he burned her. Literally. Yet things got real hot and heavy, and he ended up severely burning her. He was taken in by the original X Factor team, then went through various other groups, the X-Terminators, the New Mutants, the Mutant Liberation Front, and finally the Acolytes before he was killed by Holocaust, the Age of Apocalypse refugee. Though briefly resurrected for Necrotia, he's been officially resurrected and seen on Krakoa, right here. For years, he was also in a relationship with Skids, Sally Blevins, and she's been with him in almost every group that he's been part of. Also, it's worth noting that Fire Fist has only been used as a code name for him in recent years, but no one ever actually calls him that. He's just as much Rusty, just like Shadowcat, as Kitty Pryde. Next, Flambé. Flambé is a mutant whose power is fire manipulation. Though she could not create it, she could take mental control over any existing fire around her and cause it to grow tremendously in size and intensity. By manipulating the flame's oxygen molecules, she could increase the potency of a flame so much so that it totally consumed and incinerated a human being within a matter of seconds. Flambé frequently employed lit fire eater sticks as tools for her power, taking in a mouthful of flame and then expelling it in a compressed stream, much like a blowtorch. Some fun facts. She was young, sadistic, and apparently from France. She was a member of Hell's Bells during the days of the government-sponsored X Factor team, and she lost her powers on M-Day, but that didn't take away her criminal tendencies, nor that of her fellow teammates who were also depowered, mostly. They were eventually taken down, but were offered amnesty and citizenship on Krakoa, which they accepted. They were last seen a few years ago at the Hellfire Club Gala, or rather the Hellfire Gala, and presumably they all underwent Crucible to regain their powers. Okay, let's do a little bit of compare and contrast. Most of these mutants are pyrokinetics to varying degrees, but Blowtorch Brand, he's the only outlier and the most low level. I mean, he can't even generate any fire. He's only functionally immune to it and its effects. He can't manipulate fire like Pyro, who, mind you, doesn't even have Brand's form of fire immunity. Pyro's only immune to fire that's already under his mental control, and his biggest drawback is his inability to start fires. His counterpart in the 2003 film X2, X-Men United, summed up his power in this one sentence.
I can only manipulate the fire. I can't create it.
He can only take control of fires within his line of sight, no matter how big or small. But think of what he could have done back in '93 when Waco occurred. I mean, I'm just saying. Now, Flambé, she appears to have the same ability as Pyro, only her power operates through oxygen manipulation, similar to elementals like Crystal from the Inhumans, and she uses a fire-breathing torch as a focus for her power. Curiously enough, her costume has a similar coloration of Pyro's as well, and so does Rusty's a little bit. Now, Rusty and the Burner, they're the true pyrokinetics of this list. I mean, they both can generate and manipulate heat and flame. They can create fire on their own, manipulate outside sources of fire so as to put them out or make them bigger and hotter. And each of the people on this list, they've been shown to perform capabilities that the others haven't. For example, Pyro has been shown to shape fires into different forms that he can imagine and even grant them a certain degree of solidity. Given that the Burner and Rusty can produce streams of fire from their hands, it's reasonable to assume that they can shape fire in the same manner that Pyro does as well. Also, the mutant called Match has similar pyrokinetic powers, except his head is constantly on fire. If you want to see more about him, go to my Dumbest Mutant Powers Part 9 video for more information. Additionally, Rusty has a force field of psionic energy that protects him from heat and fire, both from his own and outside sources. The Burner does not have an invisible force field, but instead, his power comes with a built-in fire extinguishing mechanism. Any fire that gets within 1 foot of him is automatically doused, which makes him immune to the effects of fire and burning just as well, from his own power and from otherwise. He must have some kind of override function to that as well, since we've seen him generate a flame aura on his body. You know, if you think about it, most of these pyrokinetic mutants are temperature manipulators, but instead of being Omega level like Bobby Drake, meaning he's endothermic, these guys, Flambé, Rusty, the Burner, Pyro, their powers are more exothermic. Also, considering that 4 out of 5 of these mutants can take control over fire, what would happen if they ever faced off against each other? It'd be a battle of wills to take control of flames, that's for certain. And one thing that's also for certain is they would all make great firefighters, especially Blowtorch Brand, Rusty, and Burner, if they could learn how to expand the range of their fire-repellent force fields / built-in fire extinguishers so that others could benefit from them as well. But out of all of them, the Burner, he reigns supreme. He's the best pyrokinetic out of all of them. He's got the most control over his power. And he's a true pyrokinetic like Rusty as well, too. All right, Shackhousers, that's what I got for you this week. Tune in next week. I promise I will not be taking this long to create a video for you out there. And thank you to all my subscribers out there. Thank you. Without you guys, this would not be possible. So tune in next week. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!
Yeah.